So the new Vivo V29 and the Vivo V29 Pro are here, and there are many upgrades on the camera side of things. Considering Vivo's phones generally have good camera capabilities, I was curious to see if these are the best camera phones under Rs 40,000. More importantly, I really want to see how is the 2x portrait camera on the Vivo V29 Pro. So let's find that out and more in this video made in partnership with Vivo. If you're here for the first time, I'm Ershad. You're watching Track and Tech English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. Alright, I really want to start off by talking about the camera setup on the Vivo V29 Pro especially because it is really good. So you get a 50MP Sony IMX766 sensor with OIS, and you also get a 2x telephoto, or actually it's a 2x portrait camera with Sony IMX663, and there's an 8MP ultra wide angle camera and a 50MP camera on the front, which also has autofocus as well. But the creative part of the camera setup is that apart from the LED flash, you've got a separate smart Aura light, which is Vivo's take on a ring light attached to a phone. It's not the first time on a Vivo phone that we're seeing the Aura light, but it has increased 36% brightness now. What I really like about the smart Aura light is that it can automatically change the color temperature to warm or cool depending on the environment's light itself, and that helps you take portraits that look as good as these. Honestly, when I'm shooting pictures in low light using phones, I generally don't use the flash and I skip it. But with the smart Aura light, I sort of, might change that habit of mine because it's actually very good. And in general, if you look at it, the 2x portraits look so good. And there are a lot of portrait filters as well. There's this wedding style portrait filter in 3 different LUTs, including pastel, which seems to be the most sought after style in most Bollywood shadis these days anyway. And even in general, I really like the skin tones when shooting people. They're close to natural looking. Talking about natural, Vivo V29 Pro also has the natural color mode now. So if you're someone who prefers accurate or close to accurate colors, you can get that too with the Sony IMX766 primary camera. What is also particularly impressive on the Vivo V29 Pro is the HDR performance and the lens flare correction, especially in low light situations. In fact, the low light shots that I captured with the phone have a good amount of exposure and details too. Now, the only concern on the phone is that I kind of expected more details from the pictures captured using the Sony IMX766, but that's a concern only if you're pixel peeping. If you're going to be uploading pictures to social media, that's generally not a problem. And considering the fact that Vivo's algorithm has great color tuning and HDR out of the box, I think most people won't really worry about that fact. Moving on, I really like the 50MP selfie camera on the front because it's got a really ultra wide lens and it helps you capture more of the frame as well. But more importantly, it captures a lot of details using the selfie camera, and the skin tones are pretty good too. Plus, even in a tough scenario like this, where you've taken the selfie with a bright TV in the background, the HDR has been managed really well. So selfie HDR is good too. And of course, Vivo does portraits really well, so selfie portraits are good, and low light selfies, especially with the night mode, is actually captured very well. Now, the 8MP ultra wide angle camera is not the most sharpest one out there, but it gracefully accepts all the HDR corrections that the algorithm throws at it, so the HDR performance is actually pretty decent. And I also like the fact that Vivo is trying to maintain the color science consistency of the ultra wide and the primary camera to a large extent. Of course, it's not exactly accurate, but still, it's up there. Now, on the video side of things, you can actually shoot 4K 60fps using the rear camera and the front camera as well. But when you're shooting 4K 60fps with the primary camera, you do not get stabilized footage. If you want stabilization, you will have to drop down to 4K 30fps. And if you want ultra stabilization, you will have to drop down to 1080p 60fps. And actually, the quality of the stabilization is pretty good. Now, even with the front camera, when you're shooting 4K 60fps videos, since it's wider, the lack of stabilization doesn't really affect too much. But the kind of details that you get with the 4K 60fps footage is damn good. And generally, in this price range, you will see that most phones do not offer, 4K video recording, let alone 4K 60fps. Vivo's managing to do that. I'm glad. Now, if you do want stabilized footage using the front camera, you will have to drop down to 1080p 30fps, and that's called steady face on Vivo. And what I noticed with that is that since you have an ultra wide angle lens, the crop is not too much and you don't have to extend your hand out too much when you're actually shooting the video. And all of this is very good because most phones in this price range don't even do 1080p 30fps using the front camera. Vivo's actually offering 4K 60fps, and that's feedback that they've actually heard, not just from us, but you guys, the consumers as well. Now, with respect to modes, you've got a special micro movie mode. What that essentially means is that you can create your own pre-edited videos, like a vlog style video with it. It's damn cool. And let's not forget that you can also shoot portrait video with the Vivo V29 Pro, and the edge detection and the bokeh blur are pretty satisfactory. With respect to the cameras on the V29 Pro, I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot to unpack. But you'll be like, Ershad, okay, fine. The cameras are generally great on Vivo phones. That's something that we know. what about the rest of the phone? Well, it's a Vivo phone, so it's slim, it's lightweight, it's curved from the front and the rear, and of course, it looks good too. This shade of blue is called Himalayan blue, and what company has done is some sort of process with the glass itself where it's added nanoscale magnetic particles. Apparently the company was inspired by the Himalayan peaks for this specific shade of color. It does look good. Now I say it looks good because it's glossy and it's not that much of a fingerprint magnet. But the camera module is definitely getting taller and bigger each passing year. However, in this case, I'm presuming that's to add, space for the smart Aura light. Now, with respect to the design, there are a couple of things to note is that there's no IP rating and there's no stereo speaker setup as well. So that's something that you have to keep in mind before you're considering this phone. But the mono speaker has been tuned well. It's loud and rich enough. Take a listen for yourself and let me know what you think. That said, the display experience on this phone is top notch. This is a 6.78 inch Full HD Plus AMOLED 10-bit panel with HDR10 Plus support and 1300 nits of peak brightness as well. And with Vivo phones, you can rest assured that the color accuracy will be good, especially in the professional mode. They do very good color tuning with the phone itself. So if you are somebody who likes to edit photos or videos on the go, then you can trust this display definitely. And one thing I must mention is that Vivo also doesn't skimp out on the HDR certification. So not only do you get HDR playback on YouTube, you also get HDR playback on Netflix. Now, one aspect of the display that could have been better is the haptic feedback. It definitely could have been tighter. It's currently slightly soft and mushy. Now, since this is an AMOLED panel, the in-display fingerprint scanner, on the other hand, is very fast. It's very responsive. It unlocks really fast. No problems there. Now, with respect to the chip inside, this is the MediaTek Dimensity system on chip, and this was the same one that was there inside the V27 Pro as well. And this is actually very, very powerful. Now, for context, you can actually play Call of Duty Mobile at very high graphics and max frame rates, or low graphics and ultra frame rates, which means that you can actually play the game at 90 FPS. Also, while I was playing games on the phone, I didn't feel any throttling or heating issues either, which is not a bad thing. Plus, you also get LPDDR5 RAM, UFS 3.1 storage, so the bases are covered there. And when you're actually gaming, you do get 1000 Hz of instant touch sampling rate as well. So the touch sampling rate is also improved, so you can register touches very immediately. Now, there's a 4500 mAh battery inside with 80 watt fast charging support. So a charge from 0 to 100 should take you about 45 minutes. Of course, the phone is also running FunTouch OS 13 based on Android 13, and Vivo promises 2 years of software updates and 3 years of security updates on the V29 Pro. But note that hot apps and hot games are available by default when you first open up the phone, but this is something that you can switch off from the V App Store. And we also noticed that there were 5 pre-installed third-party apps, again, all of which can be uninstalled, but yeah, they're there. Now, talking about the younger sibling, the Vivo V29, it's practically very similar to the V29 Pro, except for the fact that this majestic red color variant comes with a color changing back. So if you take it out and expose it to the sun's rays, it changes to a completely different color, so you get a completely new phone. Now, it's about the same thickness as the V29 Pro, but slightly lighter. And with respect to the battery, you get a 4600 mAh battery, 80 watt fast charging as well, so very similar to the V29 Pro, and the software experience again is very similar to the V29 Pro. But there are a couple of important changes on the V29 compared to the V29 Pro. This one has the Snapdragon 778G chip, and it doesn't have the portrait camera. Now, 778G is actually a very capable processor, something we've tested time and again, so you know exactly how it's going to perform, and it's also a very stable processor as well. But if you're a gamer, then this processor might not be the best in the price class. You'll have other options that you can consider. As for the cameras, not only is the 2x portrait camera not there, the primary camera is actually a different sensor. It's not the Sony IMX766, it's the Samsung GN5. And you get the same 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera and a 50MP selfie camera with autofocus on the front, which is the same as the V29 Pro. Now, for the large part, if you're considering the V29, what you'd like to know is, since the primary camera is a different sensor, how different is the algorithm working out here? So we've shot pictures using the primary camera, and you can see for yourself the differences between the skin tones, the night mode performance, and the HDR performance as well. And you'll notice that it's not too different. And of course, like I mentioned, no 2x telephoto available, but you can of course do digital 2x crop, and that's how the pictures look. Now, while you do not have the portrait mode, you have the other features available. For example, the Smart Aura light is there on the V29 as well. Again, increased 36% brightness, so the kind of portrait shots that you get with it look very, very good. And you've also got the micro movie mode, a portrait video mode, all of that is available on the V29 as well. So under rupees 40,000, the V29 Pro and the V29 are definitely stellar options to consider for most folks out there, especially if you're somebody who values design and camera performance a lot. And Vivo is one of the few brands that seems to be focusing on camera in the under 40,000 price category. Most brands want to generally give you a performance-oriented phone. There are also some camera enthusiasts out there. And with the 2x portrait camera on the V29 Pro, I think Vivo is stepped in the right direction. What do you guys think of the new Vivo V29 series, the V29 Pro and the V29? Let me know in the comments below. And I'm sure you guys are itching to see some comparisons of these phones with other phones as well. Let me know what would you like to see specifically in the comment section. And that's it from me for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.